Billionaire's wife threw wine at a black CEO seconds later. Her husband's company was gone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You missed a spot. The words sliced through the music like glass breaking under velvet. All eyes turned toward the woman in the crimson gown, tall, diamonded, untouchable. Her hand still trembled around the stem of a half-empty wine glass. At her feet, red liquid bled across marble, spreading toward a man's polished shoes, a man who hadn't moved since the moment she threw it. He stood there, calm. His suit, dark as midnight, now streaked with merlot. No outrage, no sound, just silence heavy enough to drown the jazz still humming above the chandelier. The woman tilted her chin. "Next time," she said, her voice smooth and cruel, "buy a ticket, not a table." A ripple of laughter broke around the private dining room, quiet, expensive laughter, the kind that feeds on humiliation. Some guests looked away, pretending not to see. Others leaned closer, their eyes glittering with curiosity. The man simply reached for a napkin. Slow, measured, controlled. He dabbed the wine off his sleeve, as if cleaning evidence, not pride. The maitre d' hesitated near the door, uncertain whether to intervene or vanish. From the corner, a young hostess whispered, "Isn't that Marcus Reed?" Her supervisor shot her a glare. "Keep serving. He's no one important tonight." But Marcus Reed was important. In fact, he was the quiet storm behind the building they were standing in, the one who financed this entire luxury chain, who signed their paychecks through a web of subsidiaries no one in the room even knew existed. Tonight, he had come alone, no bodyguards, no entourage, no tailored arrogance. Just curiosity. He wanted to see how people behaved when they thought power didn't look like them, and what he saw was exactly what he expected. The billionaire's wife, Charlotte Dempsey, 41, elegance sharpened into entitlement, had mistaken him for an intruder in her social habitat. Her husband, seated beside her, didn't stop her. He didn't even blink. He just leaned back, chuckled, and muttered, "Relax, honey, these people are everywhere now." Marcus's hand froze mid-wipe. For the first time, his eyes lifted slow, steady, meeting the man's. No glare, no fury, just something colder, something calculating. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Marcus. He placed the wine-stained napkin on the table. A perfect red handprint bloomed across white linen, like evidence sealed in silence. No one spoke. No one dared. Charlotte Dempsey took another sip from her glass, eyes dancing with victory. "See?" she murmured to the table. "Sometimes you have to remind people of their place." But she had no idea she was talking to a man who built every place she'd ever dined in. And before this night ended, that lesson in class, it would cost her husband everything. That night wasn't a coincidence. Marcus Reed didn't stumble into that dining room. He chose it. 2 days earlier, his board had approved a merger with Dempsey Holdings, a billion-dollar real estate empire whose CEO, the man now smirking across the table, had no idea who the quiet investor behind the deal really was. Marcus wanted to see them up close before the contracts were signed. No press, no introduction, just observation. He arrived early, wearing a plain navy suit that cost less than Charlotte's handbag. New driver, new assistant, new reserved spotlight, just him, his phone, and a mind that recorded everything. He had built his fortune differently through patience and precision. The kind of power that doesn't announce itself, it waits. So when the maitre d' failed to recognize him and offered to find him a seat near the back, Marcus smiled and said, "That'll do." He'd seen this movie before. 20 years ago, he'd walked into a corporate gala as an unpaid intern. A waiter mistook him for staff and handed him a tray. He'd carried it all night and still closed his first deal the next morning. Tonight, the memory sat beside him like an old friend, whispering, "Nothing changes until you make it." Back in the present, Charlotte Dempsey's laughter still lingered in the air like perfume turned sour. Marcus adjusted his cufflink, a simple onyx stone carved with his company's insignia, one of the few clues to who he really was. No one noticed. They never did. A waiter refilled her glass, spilling a few drops on the tablecloth. Charlotte snapped. "Careful, this isn't a diner." Marcus's eyes flicked up, studying her tone. Every word, every look, every assumption, he cataloged it all. From across the room, Lena, the young hostess, was still staring at him. Something about his calm didn't fit the narrative she'd been told. She opened the reservation list again, scrolling until she froze at a name highlighted in gold. M. Reed, executive partner. Her lips parted. She whispered to herself, "Oh my God." Marcus noticed her hesitation. Their eyes met for half a second, a silent acknowledgement that truth had just woken up in the corner of the room. Then he turned his gaze back to the table, where the Dempseys chatted about yachts and art collections as if the man they'd humiliated didn't exist. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. His phone buzzed once on the table, a message from his assistant, Amira. "Board ready. Live access standing by whenever you say." Marcus locked the screen, exhaled slowly, and folded his hands. The storm was forming, but he wouldn't summon it yet. Not until they crossed one more line. The matron approached again, nervous. "Sir, perhaps you'd like to move to the bar area instead?" Marcus looked at him for a long second, not angry, just curious. Then, quietly, "No, I'll stay right here." His voice was calm but carried weight, the kind that made the air shift slightly, like the room itself remembered who it was dealing with. From the corner, Lena whispered to another waiter, "Something's about to happen." She was right, because the next few minutes would turn this polite dinner into a public reckoning. And for the Dempseys, it would be the most expensive glass of wine they ever poured. It hung heavy, static, like the room itself knew it had witnessed something wrong, yet no one dared to say it. Marcus sat still, the quiet center of an uncomfortable universe. Charlotte Dempsey's circle of friends had returned to their champagne chatter, trying too hard to sound unaffected. But the tension wouldn't let them breathe naturally. The maitre d' leaned toward Charlotte's husband. "Sir, do you want me to have him moved? Perhaps—" The man didn't even look up. "Handle it discreetly." And just like that, a silent order traveled through the staff. Two waiters exchanged glances. One disappeared behind the bar to call security. The other began clearing Marcus's table, a deliberate move to make him feel unwelcome. Marcus didn't react. He let them take the empty plates, the untouched bread basket, even his glass of water. Every motion was a performance of quiet disrespect. Then a voice, hesitant, female, cut through the tension. "Excuse me, I believe this guest is on the reservation list." It was Lena. Her tone trembled, but the truth inside it didn't. The older supervisor shot her a glare sharp enough to slice the air. "Lena, I'll handle this." He turned toward Marcus, plastering on a professional smile that couldn't hide the condescension. "Sir, I'm afraid this section is reserved for invited guests only. I can arrange a seat at the bar if you'd like." The room quieted again. Even Charlotte leaned back, watching amused. Marcus looked at the man, his voice low and unshaken. "I didn't realize respect was assigned by table number." A few heads turned. The supervisor stiffened. "It's not that, sir, it's just—" Charlotte interrupted, laughing softly. "Oh, please, don't make this political." And the words rolled off her tongue like perfume and poison mixed together. Marcus's eyes lingered on her for a long second. Not anger, just study. He'd seen this pattern before: power disguised as privilege, ignorance packaged as confidence. And every time, it ended the same way. Security arrived, two men in black suits. Not aggressive, but firm, rehearsed. "Sir," one of them said, "we've been asked to verify your invitation." Marcus didn't answer immediately. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and placed it face down on the table. The screen lit briefly, showing a single name on the wallpaper, Reed Global Holdings. Then it dimmed again, like a warning that no one caught. Lena's voice wavered from behind them. He's not a guest, he's a partner." The room froze. "What?" the supervisor barked. She held up the tablet, shaking slightly. "His name is on the executive list. Gold access." Charlotte blinked, confused. "Executive of what?" Her husband leaned forward, irritation creeping into his tone. "Sweetheart, don't get involved. This is clearly some mistake." Marcus exhaled, quiet but controlled. He'd given them every chance to stop digging. Now, he was done being the lesson they refused to learn gently. He rose from his chair, not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to make every eye follow. The hum of the jazz track died mid-note. "Gentlemen," he said to the guards, his tone even, "you can verify my credentials. Call your director. He'll answer." They hesitated. Something in his calmness unsettled them. The kind of authority that doesn't need to be loud to be absolute. Charlotte laughed again, brittle this time. "Look at him, pretending to be important." Her husband smirked. "It's always the quiet ones." Marcus glanced toward the entrance just once. Outside, Amira's car had already pulled up. It was time. Lena's pulse hammered in her ears. She hadn't planned to speak again. But watching the man in the navy suit stand there calm, dignified, and alone, something in her refused to stay silent. The supervisor snapped, "Lena, step aside." But she didn't. She clutched the tablet tighter, her knuckles white. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "I checked the list twice. His name's there, Marcus Reed, executive partner. If we remove him, we'll be removing the man who owns half of this hotel group." The words hit the room like a low, distant thunder. The laughter stopped. Charlotte blinked, confused. Her husband frowned, a hint of disbelief creasing his forehead. "What kind of joke is this?" he asked. Lena swallowed hard. "It's not a joke, sir. He's—" "Enough," the supervisor barked. "You're overstepping." He reached out, snatching the tablet from her hands, his voice rising. But the screen didn't lie. The golden signature M. Reed, divided by Reed Global Holdings, stared back at him like a verdict. For a moment, no one breathed. The weight of realization began to seep into the walls. Marcus hadn't moved. He simply watched the scene unfold, as if the truth didn't need his defense, it only needed time. He'd learned long ago that silence, when held by the right person, is more powerful than shouting. Lena glanced at him, searching his face for confirmation. He gave her a single nod, barely there, but enough to say you did the right thing. Charlotte's husband chuckled, trying to claw back control. "Please, if this were true, we would have known. We've worked with Reed Global before." His voice faltered, realization dawning mid-sentence. He had worked with Reed Global, but never met its founder in person. Because Marcus Reed didn't do introductions. Charlotte leaned toward him, whispering sharply, "You said the investor was some European fund." He didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on Marcus. The supervisor turned pale. He took a half-step back, stammering, "Sir, I apologize. We didn't realize." Marcus finally spoke. Calm, even, controlled. "You never do. That's the point." The room went still again. Lena's throat tightened. She'd never seen authority expressed so quietly, so decisively. It wasn't anger, it was weight, the kind that bends a room around it. Security exchanged nervous glances. Charlotte's wine glass trembled slightly as she set it down. Her husband forced a chuckle. "Well, this is awkward." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Awkward is spilling wine. This," he said softly, "is accountability." The supervisor tried to speak, but Marcus raised a hand, barely a gesture, yet it silenced the entire room. He looked toward Lena. "What's your name?" "Lena, sire." "Thank you, Lena. That's enough." It was both dismissal and gratitude. A quiet acknowledgement that she had done something rare stood up when no one else did. Lena exhaled, her heart racing. For the first time, she didn't feel like staff. She felt like witness, like the story had changed because she spoke. Marcus turned back to the table, to Charlotte and her husband, who now sat in a silence sharp enough to cut through glass. He picked up his phone. One tap. The screen lit up. "Amira, prepare the feed." It was time for the truth to go live. The stem of the wine glass tilted, catching the chandelier's light before a thin stream of red splashed across his sleeve. It wasn't an accident. Everyone knew it. The crowd gasped too late, too stunned. Charlotte's laugh cracked through the silence, brittle and mean. "Oh, relax. It's just wine," she said. "Maybe it'll blend with your suit." Her husband shifted uncomfortably, whispering, "Charlotte, stop." But she didn't hear him. She was drunk on power, not alcohol. Marcus didn't move. He simply looked down at the stain blooming across his cuff like a wound reopening. For a moment, he wasn't in that dining hall. He was 19 again, standing in a hotel lobby in Atlanta, told to use the side entrance. The clerk hadn't shouted, just smiled that same thin smile Charlotte had. He'd slept in his car that night, and he'd sworn never again. The flashback faded. The wine was drying now, dark and sticky, the smell faint but sharp. Marcus exhaled through his nose, a quiet release of years he'd already learned to carry. Charlotte leaned forward again, still performing for the audience that wasn't laughing anymore. "You're awfully calm for someone who just got humiliated," she said. Marcus looked up. "Humiliation only works," he said softly, "if I believe it's real." The table went silent. Even the jazz pianist in the corner stopped mid-note. He straightened his cuff gently, almost ceremonially, then set his napkin down beside his untouched plate. The sound was barely audible, yet final like the closing of a chapter. Charlotte tried to fill the silence. "You know, my husband built this place from the ground up," she said loudly. "It takes more than money to sit at this table." Marcus's eyes met hers, calm and unwavering. "You're right," he said. "It takes class." A few diners coughed nervous, unsure whether to laugh or hold their breath. Charlotte's husband shot him a pleading look, but Marcus wasn't angry. He was precise. He reached for his phone, his thumb hovering above a single button. "You want to toast to something, Mrs. Dempsey?" he asked evenly. "Let's toast to endings." A faint chime echoed from his phone. Somewhere in the restaurant, lights flickered, barely perceptible, like the pulse of something waking up. At the host's stand, the maitre d's monitor flashed a message. "Audit mode, authorized by Reed Global Holdings." The maitre d's breath caught. Reed Global, the name that owned half the city's skyline. Marcus looked back at Charlotte, the faintest trace of a smile breaking through the calm. "You said your husband built this place," he murmured. "He built it, yes, but someone had to buy it." Charlotte blinked. "What are you talking about?" Marcus leaned back, voice even, steady, deliberate. "Consider this your first notice," he said quietly. "The partnership you took for granted, it just ended." Her wine glass trembled. Her husband reached for his phone, already seeing the flood of alerts from his corporate inbox. "Contract termination. Reed Global Holdings. Effective immediately." Marcus rose to his feet, not rushed, not dramatic. The entire restaurant seemed to move around him, slow motion, hushed awe. He looked toward the waiter who'd been frozen near the bar. "You don't need to apologize," he said gently. "You just witnessed the cost of arrogance." And then to no one and everyone at once, he said, "Power doesn't need to shout, it just acts." The weight of the words lingered like smoke. Charlotte's laughter was gone. Her husband's phone buzzed again and again. Marcus turned, leaving his stained napkin behind, proof that dignity can be quiet and still deafening. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Charlotte's hand trembled around her glass. Her husband's jaw locked tight. No one dared to speak first. Marcus stood there still, centered, deliberate, a man who had spent a lifetime learning how to weaponize calm. When he finally moved, it wasn't sudden. It was surgical. He turned his phone upright. The screen flashed once, then stabilized. "Amira," he said quietly. "Activate the review protocol. Authorization, Reed Sigma." Aye. Across the city, lights flickered inside a glass-walled control room. His team had been waiting. The system connected instantly, every camera in the restaurant's network switching live. Within seconds, silent proof began uploading to cloud archives, video, audio, every slur and gesture recorded with timestamps. The maitre d's phone buzzed. His face drained as he read the alert. "Location now under internal audit, Reed Global Holdings." He looked up slowly, eyes darting between Marcus and Charlotte's husband. "Sir," he stammered, What is happening?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Every movement, every pause, carried gravity. Charlotte's husband finally broke the silence. "This is absurd," he said, forcing a laugh. "You can't just walk in here and—" Marcus cut him off gently, without volume but with precision. "I didn't walk in. I built the door you just used." The room froze. Even the jazz in the background seemed to hesitate. Charlotte's eyes widened, panic flickering through the cracks of arrogance. Her husband straightened, trying to regain control. "You're bluffing," he said. "You expect me to believe." Marcus turned his screen around. On it, the restaurant's corporate structure glowed in blue light. At the top of the chart, Reed Global Holdings, 62% ownership. Beneath it, Dempsey Dining Group, subsidiary entity. He watched the realization settle slow, suffocating, undeniable. Lena, standing near the corner, covered her mouth with one hand. The supervisor stepped back, whispering, "Oh my God." Charlotte's husband's voice broke the silence again, this time weaker. How did we not know?" Marcus's tone didn't waver. "Because you never look past what you expect to see." The words cut quietly but deep. They weren't revenge, they were truth served cold. From his earpiece, Amira's voice came through, calm and crisp. Audit logs are confirmed, sir. Security footage archived. Would you like to initiate the next phase? Marcus exhaled slowly. Proceed, but make it discreet. A notification chimed through the restaurant speakers. System maintenance in progress. But it wasn't maintenance, it was shutdown. Payment terminals froze, lights dimmed slightly, and every employee phone locked simultaneously with a single message. Temporary hold. Compliance review active. Charlotte's husband stood up. You can't do this. Marcus met his eyes, steady, composed, unmovable. I already did. Lena whispered to a coworker. He's not just rich, he's the rich. The maitre swallowed hard. Mr. Reed, what would you like us to do? Marcus turned toward him. Tone even. Start by remembering how to treat people. That'll be enough for tonight. He glanced around once, every face pale, every pretense dissolved. The silence wasn't fear anymore. It was awareness. Charlotte's hand slipped from her glass. It shattered softly. The dining room had gone so still it felt like the air itself was listening. Security hovered, unsure. Staff froze in place. And at the center of the silence, Marcus stood no longer a question mark, no longer the man they thought they could move, shame, or ignore. It was time. He tapped his phone once. The main screen above the bar flickered, then stabilized into a clean white display. Black letters appeared slowly, each one slicing deeper than the last. Reed Global Holdings. Live session initiated. Host, Marcus Anthony Reed. Executive access level. Primary owner. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Charlotte staggered back a step as if the words had weight. Her husband's face drained of every shade of confidence he'd worn all evening. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply turned toward them, the light from the screen outlining his silhouette like a quiet thunderstorm. You called me a trespasser, he said, in a company I own. A murmur swept across the tables. Someone dropped a fork. Lena covered her mouth with both hands. Charlotte stared at him, shaking her head in disbelief. No, you can't be. Marcus met her eyes with the patience of someone who had endured this moment too many times in his life. I am. He tapped his phone again, and the screen shifted to a detailed chart. Corporate branches, subsidiaries, holding companies, all funneling upward into one name. Reed Global Holdings. And just beneath it, 62% majority ownership Marcus A. Reed. Charlotte's breath caught. Her husband's chair scraped loudly as he shot to his feet. This is outrageous. If you were the investor, why didn't you announce yourself earlier? Why walk in here like... Marcus stepped closer, not threatening, just close enough that the truth felt inescapable. Because I don't test people, he said. I watch how they treat who they think has less. The words landed like a sentence handed down from a higher court. No shouting, no theatrics, just calm truth, and it was devastating. Charlotte's voice cracked. We didn't know. Marcus studied her, then shook his head slightly. You didn't want to know. Behind him, the screen displayed the live corporate feed. Board members joining the session, executives watching from offices across the city, their faces appearing one by one, some silent, some grim, some disappointed. The maitre whispered, Dear God. Charlotte's husband tried again, desperation creeping into his tone. Marcus, listen, this is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Whatever happened, it wasn't intentional. Marcus raised a single eyebrow. You humiliated me for existing in the wrong suit. Your wife threw wine on me for breathing near your table. He paused long enough for the truth to echo. And you call that a misunderstanding? Charlotte's eyes filled, but the tears weren't remorse, they were fear. The fear of losing everything she thought untouchable. Marcus looked at both of them, really looked as if weighing not their wealth, but their character. His voice dropped to a near whisper, quieter than anger, heavier than rage. Tonight, you learned something important. The room you think you own doesn't belong to you. Behind him, the live session chimed. A board member spoke through the speakers. Mr. Reed, the dissolution file is prepared, awaiting your authorization. The entire dining room froze. Charlotte clutched her husband's arm. Her husband swallowed loud, helpless. Marcus lifted his phone. His thumb hovered over the confirmation button, the one that would end their billion-dollar empire in a single breath. He didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, he looked at the couple with calm, measured finality. Actions have consequences. Yours arrived tonight. The room felt smaller, the walls tighter, and everyone knew the storm had finally arrived. The moment Marcus's thumb hovered above the authorization button, the room changed. Not gradually, instantly. The arrogance drained from faces that had worn it like jewelry. The confidence evaporated from the air like steam off cold marble. And the panic, it spread fast. Quiet first, then loud. Charlotte's husband lurched toward Marcus, hands half raised as if trying to physically stop the inevitable collapse. "Marcus, please listen to me. We can work this out. We can talk privately." Marcus didn't move. He didn't even blink. "You had every chance to talk. You chose to insult." Behind him, the corporate feed on the big screen grew crowded, window after window opening. Board members, legal counsel, chief officers, every one of them wearing the same expression, "This is already over." A board member spoke through the speakers, his voice grim. "Mr. Reed, our analysts confirm Dempsey Holdings' valuation will plummet within the hour if we execute the dissolution." Charlotte's husband staggered. "The hour? Marcus, I have employees, partners, families." Marcus turned to him slowly. "And how many did you consider before throwing your weight around tonight?" The man swallowed, throat tight. He had no answer. Suddenly, buzz. His phone vibrated violently. Then again. And again. Notifications exploded across his screen faster than he could swipe them away. Contract suspended. Credit line frozen. Investor pullout alert. Emergency board review scheduled. Charlotte grabbed his arm. "What's happening?" "James, what does that mean?" He stared at the phone, horror widening his eyes. "It means we're done. We're completely—" He didn't finish. He couldn't. Across the room, Lena flinched as another alert flashed on the restaurant's display. Subsidiary status updated Dempsey Dining Group. Ownership reassignment pending. Someone whispered, "He's taking everything." Someone else whispered back, "No, he already owns it." Charlotte backed away from Marcus as though he carried something contagious. All the fire, all the superiority, all the casual cruelty gone. Her voice came out small, shaking. "Please, you can't destroy us over a misunderstanding." Marcus looked at her, not with anger, not with vengeance, with clarity. "This isn't destruction, it's accountability." James, the once untouchable billionaire, dropped into his chair like a man who had just realized he never understood the game he was playing. His legs shook under the table. He ran both hands through his hair. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." It was real, and getting worse. Another alert chimed, louder this time. Federal compliance notified pending review. Someone gasped. Someone swore under their breath. Someone else whispered, "This is a corporate death sentence." Marcus didn't smile. He didn't savor it. He simply watched the collapse unfold, slow, silent, inevitable like a tower built on ego finally tipping under its own weight. Charlotte clutched her necklace, desperate. "What do you want from us?" Marcus took a breath, deep, measured, a breath that felt like the line between restraint and action. "I wanted respect," he said quietly, "something you never considered offering." Charlotte's eyes glistened. James's head dropped into his hands. Behind Marcus, the corporate feed chimed one final time. Authorization required for transfer of controlling interest. The room froze. Every heartbeat seemed audible, every fear exposed. Marcus raised his phone once more. "Let's finish this." The collapse had begun. Now came the consequences. The dining room felt smaller now, not because the walls had moved, but because the truth had. It pressed in from every direction, steady and undeniable, like the slow tightening of a spotlight. Marcus stood at the center of it, the only one unshaken. His phone glowed softly in his hand, waiting for the final confirmation. Just one touch, one decision, one sentence that would alter the Dempsey legacy forever. Across from him, James Dempsey sat slumped in his chair, a man unmade in real time. The self-assurance he'd worn like armor was gone, replaced with something rawer fear wrapped in disbelief. Charlotte hovered behind him, her breath shaky, her fingers twisting the diamond on her hand as if she could undo what had already been set in motion. "Marcus," James whispered, "please. My company, my people, they'll all suffer." Marcus tilted his head, considering the words, the man, the moment. His expression never hardened, but it didn't soften either. "So did every person you dismissed tonight," he said. "Everyone you made smaller because you could." James swallowed hard. Charlotte's eyes glossed with tears she didn't want anyone to see. The room remained silent, reverent, even waiting for Marcus to deliver whatever came next. He looked down at his phone, thumb hovering once again over the authorization command. Then he breathed in, slow and deliberate. The kind of breath that came before a decision he'd spent years preparing for. The kind of breath that made every soul in the room lean forward. Click. He locked the screen. A collective gasp rose around him. Lena covered her mouth. The maitre d' exhaled like he'd been underwater. Even Charlotte's sob caught mid-breath. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket. "I'm not here to destroy you," he said quietly. "I'm here to educate you." It was not mercy. It was something higher, a principle sharpened by decades of being underestimated. He stepped closer to the table, voice calm enough to steady the room. "Humiliation was your lesson, accountability is mine." James looked up, eyes red, barely holding himself together. "Then, what happens now?" Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, but with the weight of a man who understood both struggle and victory. "Now, you rebuild your company, correct your culture, review your leadership." He paused, letting the words land like stone. "And you remember that the people you underestimate often own the ground you walk on." Charlotte wiped a tear quickly, as if ashamed of it. Marcus didn't look her way, but when he spoke next, the message still reached her. Power doesn't excuse behavior, it exposes it. He adjusted his cuff, the faint wine stain still visible, a reminder of the night, the insult, the turning point. Then he delivered the line that would echo long after the last guest left. "I didn't raise my voice tonight. I raised the standard." Silence followed. Not fear, not shock. Respect. Earned, heavy, absolute. Marcus turned to leave. Lena instinctively stepped aside, her eyes full of something like awe. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. He nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement of her courage. Then he walked toward the exit, each step measured, steady, leaving behind a room, a family, and an empire forever changed by a single truth. Real power doesn't announce itself. It arrives, it acts, and when necessary, it educates. The doors closed behind him. The night swallowed his silhouette. And the legend of the man who answered arrogance with dignity became the story that would outlive everyone in that room.